Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Gwynne and today I'll be talking about my TBR pile for the first quarter of 2023. Wow, it sounds crazy that we're entering 2023 already, but yes, today I'll be talking about the books that I intend to read in those months, and I think I've got 20 books or 21 books on this list, and I've read 107 books in 2022, so yeah, hopefully I can read about 30 in these 3 months, but going a bit under, so there's a few spaces available. There are just so many books that I need, not one, I need to get to, but let's get to the interesting part and talk about the books. Before I get into talking about the books, I just want to add that this is my first video trying this mic here, and so I'm sorry if I'm talking a bit too loudly or it's a bit too quiet. Please do let me know in the comments below any feedback if you preferred the mic that I used previously or if you prefer this one, which sound you prefer. And so yeah, as I said, please do give me feedback. It is really helpful as I'm trying new tech. I'm not the best with tech or mics or cameras or anything like that, so if someone says that the audio is a bit off or the camera is, please do let me know and I'll endeavour to fix it. And yeah, this is going to be interesting to try out, and if it doesn't, I'll just go back to the old way. I'm happy to do either, but yeah, hopefully this is an improvement. First up, to kick this list off, I have 3 books, and this is part of the same series. I intend to read one a month, and this is the Boudicca Quartet by Amanda Scott, historical fiction about the real life historical figure of Boudicca. And the first one is called Dreaming the Eagle, which I'm currently reading, and this is absolutely exceptional in every single way. It's a character-driven story, and it's set in the 1st century AD, and oh my gosh, the historical prevalence is absolutely brilliant. This feels authentic. I am so immersed in this world. Every single time I pick this book up, within a page, I'm just in that world. I'm with the characters, and I absolutely adore this book. It's absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. Everything it is enhanced by absolutely. So I'm just going to add absolutely in front of everything when I talk about this book. And so my brother Ed and my Papa Gwynne are huge fans of this series, and I am joining those ranks. And so, as I said, I intend to read one a month. So I will finish this probably in the first few days of January. Then I will have Dreaming the Bull for February, and then I will have Dreaming the Hound for March. So yeah, there we go, the first 3 installments, and I'm really looking forward to it. And so next up, I very kindly was bought a Kindle for my birthday and Christmas. I'm born on Christmas Eve, so I forgot which one it was for, but I was very kindly bought this by my parents. And so yeah, I am betraying the shelves, but my shelves are so full, I need to slow down the book buying. It will never stop, let's be honest, but I can slow it down a bit, and that is by trying some books on Kindle, and then if I love them, I'm going to buy them physically. You can't stop me. But so first up, the first book I'm reading on here is Unsold by Will Wight, and this is part of his, I think it's called Cradle. That's what the series is called, and this has been a phenomenon in the self-publishing world. And yeah, I've just heard so many great things from those like Matt's Fantasy book reviews. I've heard it from Petrick and quite a few others as well. I think that I've read the first few chapters. It feels very unique, and it's labelled as levelling up fantasy, which is basically a character who at the beginning is a low level, he's not as powerful as those around them, and then every single book they're just levelling up, like getting armour that's more powerful or magic or something like that. I'm not exactly sure of the form this is going to take, but I'm very aware of what the kind of the theme of the series is. And the first few chapters I've read, I'm hooked, I'm very engaged, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, it's weird adapting to reading on Kindle, but as I said, really enjoying it. And not only will I be reading Unsold, which is book 1, I will be reading that in January. In book 2, I will have, book 2 is Soulsmith, I believe it's called, and I'll read that in February. And then book 3 is Black Flame, and I intend to read that in March. I'm doing a lot of staggered reads, 1 book a month. And so yeah, this will be another one joining those ranks. And talking about staggered reads, I will also be reading the Cicero trilogy. Library of Alexandria is doing a read along on his channel, his Discord, and he'll be talking about them on his channel as well. And so this is historical fiction about the very renowned figure of Cicero, and this is by Robert Harris. So book 1 Imperium, book 2 Lustrum, and book 3 Dictator. And yeah, this sounds like really interesting. I know next to nothing about the historical figure of Cicero. I've read some very cool quotes by him, so that's more than enough. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this, obviously learning about the historical period, really getting to know Robert Harris's writing style, because he is so well respected. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading them, and again, staggered reading. I'll read book 1 in January, book 2 in February, and you guessed it, book 3 in March. Next up, I have the physical book I'll be reading after I finish Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott, and that is The Passenger, the bigger one of this box set. But I will also be reading Stella Maris between January and March, and I intend to put a review up for both of these on the channel. Do let me know in the description below whether you would be interested, and yeah, if you really want to see this review, I will answer your comment again when the review goes up, so it will give you a little notification, you can check it out. But yeah, so that is The Passenger, Stella Maris. So Cormac McCarthy hasn't released a book for, I believe, 13 or 14 years. His last one was The Road, the hugely successful The Road, and then he thought, you know what, instead of just releasing one book after all this time, I'll release two. And so they're interconnected, I believe. Is about twins. I believe they're the children, they're about the children of the man who created the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And so what a premise straight away. And I believe The Passenger follows one twin, Stella Maris the other, and so they're intertwined but different stories. And so yeah, really looking forward to reading this. They've had a bit of a mixed reception. Some people who I trust and have really enjoyed other Cormac McCarthy books say that The Passenger is one of the best books of all time, and other people say, oh, it's not usual Cormac McCarthy, it didn't kind of strike me in the same way. So it'd be very interesting to see which camp I fall into. But yeah, either way, I've got a nice little box set of these two, and they'll be taking a prized place on my shelf because it is Cormac McCarthy and he deserves it. Near to the end of December 2022, I have finished Along the Razor's Edge by Rob J. Hayes. This is book one of his fantasy series, and I've heard a lot of great things about this, and I really agree. So this is about a young girl, I think she's 14 or 15, and so she was a sorcerer, and she was fighting in a war, and her side lost, and so she was captured. She's been stripped of her sorcery and thrown in a pit, a prison which is deep underground. She can't use her magic anymore, and she's thrown into the life of thugs, thieves, and murderers, criminals all. And yeah, it's really interesting. I thought that this would be kind of a classic, kind of taking out the classic fantasy ideas. I thought she'd break out early, join a resistance, and bada bing, bada boom. But this was very, very different. I love how Rob J. Hayes took this in such a different direction from what I was expecting. It felt very fresh and a really great cast of characters. They were all very unique and very sharp. It's witty at times, but most of all, it's sharp. They say some nasty things to each other, and it is cutting, and I really felt it, and I thought that was great. Rob J. Hayes, I've read Never Die by him, which was absolutely brilliant. I think I preferred that a bit, but anyway, I thought this was so well written. The one flaw I'd say is that I wasn't rooting for any character really. Great characters, but none that I was really loving. But anyway, my review for that will come on the channel at some point. But I will be reading book 2, which is The Lessons Never Learned. I'll be reading that at some point in January or February, and I may get in book 3 there, but I probably won't, so I won't put that in this list today. But yes, The Lessons Never Learned is the sequel to Along the Razor's Edge, and I'm really looking forward to continuing this story that was started so well with Along the Razor's Edge. Next up, I have The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy, and so this is a short story. This is a short story collection, but I will only be reading one of these at the moment. I intend to get to the others at some point, but we're talking about between January and March, and we're limiting it to just that, or I'll be talking here for hours. But yes, so The Death of Ivan Ilyich. I was drawn to this because I recently watched a film called Living, which stars Bill Nighy, and this was inspired by the film Ikaru, which was directed by Akira Kurosawa, and that was in turn inspired by The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. And so yes, it's really interesting tracking it back. I will also be watching Ikaru, and then if I think I have some thoughts on them, I will be doing a review of Ikaru, Living, and The Death of Ivan Ilyich on the channel, and hopefully you will be interested in that, and please do read this as well. So Living is about a man who he is aging. He's reaching the end of his working career, and he is suddenly diagnosed with a terminal illness. So he knows he has not got long left to live. And it is a book about what he does with that time remaining. And the film Living, it wasn't over sentimental, but it was so powerful. It felt real and visceral and alive. And it was so powerful, so powerful. I cried. I don't think I've cried at so many separate points in a film before. But yeah, Living. So yes, not for the faint of heart. And there are moments of utter elation and moments of utter despair. The emotional range of the film was absolutely astounding. And I'm hoping that I can find a similar wave here in The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. And next up, I have a book I started reading on the Kindle app, but on my laptop. But on that screen, I just couldn't read it. It wasn't the book. It was just like the Kindle, it feels a lot easier reading off that than off my laptop. So this is Jade City by Fonda Lee, book 1 of the Greenbone Saga, and I'll be reading book 1, Jade City, and book 2, Jade War. And so this has been called the fantasy version of The Godfather, the fantasy-inspired version of The Godfather, and that's all I needed to be sucked into this, because The Godfather 1 and 2 are 2 of my top 5 films ever. I called Lord of the Rings 1, so Lord of the Rings 1, it'd be the Dead Poets Society another, and then probably The Godfathers 3 and 4. So yeah, talking about my favourite films, it's so easy to get me on a tangent. But anyway, of course I'm going to be into this, and I was enjoying Jade City, but I just stopped reading because of the screen, and reading for that long was giving me a bit of a headache. So now I've got the Kindle, I've got it on there, and I'll be reading Jade City. And I know people have been raving about this for a year. About a year ago, I felt really left out because everyone was going through the experience of finishing this trilogy, and then I was there, not even having started it. But I'm catching up, slowly, but I'm catching up, and hopefully I'll be able to chat to many people about my thoughts on this series. And between January and March, I will be starting my reread of The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. Of course, beginning with Assassin's Apprentice and then continuing with Royal Assassin. And I may read book 3 of this trilogy between January and March, but these 2 are definite. And I absolutely love this series. I absolutely love the trilogy. Book 3, I think, the ending is probably the weakest of any of the 9 books that I've read by Robin Hobb. But it's still totally worth the read. Absolutely brilliant. It's character-driven stories, and Fitz is absolutely exceptional. One of my top 5 characters of all time. Fitz, Night Eyes Shade, Ketrican, Verity, so good. And as I said, the whole cast it has a special place in my heart. It just makes me feel complete when I think of these books, and I'm so looking forward to a reread. Mike Britt Reviews is doing a read along on his channel, and Philip Chase has read this series and Live Ship, but he needs to carry on with them. And yes, so do I. I skipped Live Ship and the Rainmail Chronicles, which is absolute blasphemy, absolute sacrilege. But yeah, I will definitely be catching up there, and I'm really looking forward to reading these. Next up, I have some historical fiction, and that is A Night of Flames by Matthew Harvey. This is book 2 of, what's the series called? I think it's called A Time of Swords, which is what book 1 is called. I think that's the name of the series. I really hope it is. But yeah, anyway, I've read book 1, really loved it. And yeah, so it's about the initial Viking, the Norse threat on the English shores. And yes, one of the first raids is about that. And so yeah, it was really, really interesting, and I thought that Matthew Huffey did a really, really interesting and engaging take on the Magnificent Seven, but in this landscape. And so yeah, this continues the story. There's a great cast of characters there, and I'm looking forward to following them again in A Night of Flames. I've read 5 or 6 books by Matthew Harvey now, and he has not let me down at all. It's always an engaging and riveting read that he supplies, and I have very high hopes for A Night of Flames. Next up, I'll be reading Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan, which is released, I believe, in February. And so hopefully I can get access to an early copy of this, but if not, I'll be reading it at the same time as everyone else who is really, really looking forward to this new release. And so this is the sequel to The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, so it's the second installment of this series. And yeah, The Justice of Kings, I thought that the beginning there was a little bit of pacing issues, but as soon as the first quarter was over, I thought it really hit its stride. I love kind of the mystery, the detective element of this story, and the main character, the Emperor's Justice, Sir Conrad von Volt. What a name! What a name. You know he's going to be a cool character with that, and he really is. And I'm looking forward to continuing the story in The Tyranny of Faith. And then I've got a George R. R. Martin book. Of course, I had to. I am continuing my recent Westeros binge. And this is book 4 of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Feast for Crows. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I've recently finished A Storm of Swords and absolutely loved it. Those last 500 pages, wow, just surprise, 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 twist and turn, betrayal, betrayal, stab, stab, stab. And it just carried on for 500 pages, and it was just flooring me every single chapter, the events that were unfolding. I could not have guessed them. If you sat me down for an entire year and told me to write down everything that could happen, I wouldn't have covered half of those events. And so shocking. Obviously, sadly, I knew a few spoilers because I've not read these or watched the programs before, but it's such a famous series now that you do hear spoilers. And so yeah, I knew a few, but still the rest that occurred, and also the events that were spoiled, the way that they were designed and written and played out was still so engaging and riveting. And so yeah, I really cannot wait to carry on with the series Feast for Crows. I've heard that the quality takes a little dip. There's still incredible moments, but I've heard that it's a bit more bloated than the previous 3 installments. But still, I think I'm really going to enjoy it. A lot of people have loved it. Millions have loved it. And so hopefully I'll be joining that bandwagon. Only 2 to go. I won't keep you much longer. And so my penultimate book I'll be talking about today, and what I intend to read between January and March, is a reread of Legend by David Gemmell. So Philip Chase, over on his channel, Philip Chase, will be reading Legends soon, and I cannot wait to hear his thoughts. And I had a chat with him on his channel with my brother not long ago, and we were talking about David Gemmell for a little bit. And it made me feel like I need to read these books again. And I'm going to start with Legend. And I cannot wait to be back with Dross and Dross Delnock and this whole siege. It's such an epic standalone book. Absolutely fantastic. Since after David Gemmell wrote Legend, there's a few other books that follow some of the same characters. They're past, so there's prequels and sequels as well. But Legend can be read as a standalone, and I highly recommend it. And I'm really looking forward to reading it again. A bit like, I should have said it when I was holding up Farseid Trilogy by Robin Hobb. I feel a bit nervous going back to these books, which were so integral to my formative years. And yeah, so I do feel that little nervous feeling as I'm returning to them, hoping that I still love them as much, because they're held so high in my regard now that I want to keep them on that plinth. I want to keep them on that pedestal. And so I'm pretty certain that they'll remain there and I'm going to love them. But there's still that element of nervous energy as I go to read them. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to rereading Legend by David Gemmell. And the last book today is The House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper. This is the 2nd installment of the Wolf Den trilogy. The 3rd will be released in 2023, and it is called The Temple of Fortuna. And the covers, I cannot wait to line all 3 next to each other. They'll look so nice on the shelf. The Wolf Den, I absolutely loved it. It is about a woman called Amara, and she is forced to be a slave in a brothel in Pompeii, along with a group of others. And it's a very hard-hitting book. It's written in a way I could relate Elodie Harper's writing perhaps in some ways to Pat Barker's in The Silence of the Gales, where horrendous things are unfolding, tragedies, but the way they write them, it shows them to almost be normal, and then they're not emphasised beyond how most events are in their writing style. And it really just shows how these events transpire from day to day, and that adds an extra level of tragedy. And that is just one example of how Elodie Harper uses language to really enhance the emotions and the roller coaster of a ride that is The Wolf Den. And my brother read The House with the Golden Door. I recommended The Wolf Den to him, he loved it, and then he's overtaken me. So of course I can't let that stand. I have to catch up with him. And he said that he preferred The House with the Golden Door, and it may be his book of the year. So wow, oh my gosh. So yeah, there are very, very high hopes there, and yeah, I have very high expectations. So there we go. There are 20 or 21 or 22, somewhere around that number, books that I intend to read in 2023 in the first quarter from January to March. So please do let me know if you'll be reading any of these. I'd love to chat about them to you, and let me know anything else in the comments. What are you going to read? What are your reading plans? That's the same question. I don't know why I'm asking that in different ways, but yeah, just let me know anything to do with this topic, these books. Have you set yourself any goals for 2023? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know if when I read these you want to see any video dedicated reviews for them. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe.